Video games have been telling their stories as mysteries for a while now. Oftentimes, they leave behind hidden messages or Easter eggs for gamers to theorize on, waiting for the next release to be the next piece of the puzzle. It's one of the main drivers, aside from their unique style, as to why games like Bendy and the Ink Machine and Five Nights at Freddy's became so popular in the first place. Small details in the environment, in the dialogue, and so on, carefully adding to a grander story. Most of these examples are indie horror titles, but something that follows these principles in a completely different way is the Rusty Lake game series. This series is a collection of puzzle games that intend to tell that wider story, ranging from the 1700s to the 1970s. It's a story of murder, psychology, and abstract science in order to achieve immortality. And it's told throughout many different characters that all play a part in uncovering this truth of Rusty Lake. And while that sounds interesting alone, with 17 different installments, how do you keep your players interested in playing? We all know that too many poor sequels really drains these games of the enjoyment that first sparked upon initial release. Well, I believe it comes down to four major components: similarity, absurdity, mystery, and horror. And these elements of both the game design and the storytelling come together to keep players like myself actually playing, and it's what ultimately makes this Rusty Lake collection great. Most of the games follow very similar gameplay mechanics. Arrows point you to either where you can look or where you can move to discover new elements in your surroundings. And these elements you can interact with are more clearly drawn compared to the washed out backgrounds. This is standard escape room stuff, but keeping it consistent throughout most of these games makes them easy to understand and easy to keep playing afterwards. You don't want one game to follow one set of controls and then the next to be completely different. No matter how much you love a game, that unfamiliarity is going to make playing a sequel have an awkward learning curve again. Now, you've probably guessed by now, but the Rusty Lake franchise does have an exception to these rules. However, the White Door is such a niche piece of lore in comparison to the rest of the story that it's kind of like FNAF Ultimate Custom Night. It's different from all the rest, but if you play the others, you're probably going to play this one as well. And it doesn't mean the White Door itself is designed badly or anything. It just tells a side story of someone's daily routine and then eventual escape from a psychiatric ward. The game is just different, which is why I felt the need to mention it. These mechanics are the groundwork and are largely the only thing you can rely on while playing, as the puzzles surrounding the player only seem to get weirder. Whichever game you're playing, not every puzzle immediately makes sense. This again can be standard for any puzzle game. But in this series, the pieces of the puzzle bend the rules of normality and keep players guessing as to the solution. For example, in Rusty Lake Paradise, you and the rest of your family on Paradise Island experience a series of plagues. On the very first day, the water turns into blood, and you must collect leeches from some of your family members in strange and disgusting ways in order to collect enough different blood. I mean, the tap was right there, man. You didn't have to go picking at your grandma's nose. This alone is a strange and unsettling start to the game. There is a slight familiarity with the use of biblical plagues, however, playing them out in reality tells us that things are only going to get weirder. The game continues to evolve in its absurdity as the plagues continue. Your brother transforms from his formerly snarky self into a half-man, half-mosquito creature that you use to solve parts of the puzzle, including impaling your father through the ear. And you yourself, through the powers of astrology, manipulate the moon into turning red and making it bleed. These creepy and unusual puzzles are separate from the mechanics but still influence how the game is played. So I could talk for ages listing all the weird and supernatural elements within the games, but that'll take forever. So I'll just share a few moments that I thought were really interesting. While most characters in this series are human and follow the rules of biology, a select few closest to the secrets of Rusty Lake are typically known as the hybrids. These people are an anthropomorphic mix of human and animal where their head resembles that of a different creature. These people lose their names and become the Mr. or Mrs. followed by the animal they have become. For example, Mr. Owl, the first hybrid, or Miss Pheasant, Mr. Owl's grandmother. By removing their names and only knowing them as their titles, it dehumanizes them further, and as most puzzle games go, knowledge is power. And like I said before, these people are closest to Rusty Lake's secrets and know a lot more than us, putting them dauntingly above us. This stray from typical humanity is what poses in closer to the story. Seeing these creatures only gives us more questions about the nature of Rusty Lake and the ritual performed on the player in Rusty Lake Paradise that turns us into Mr. Owl. And by not giving us the true answers, only clues hidden within the puzzles, is how players continue speculating and playing to understand the abstract rules of this world. Equally interesting and gross is the old woman we attend to during the mill. Whether trapped or by her own free will, the old woman is holed up in the cupboard and helps us to progress the game. But her first task is of note when the perspective zooms towards her mouth and we see every jagged and crooked tooth. The puzzle itself is simple. You have to match sums of numbers on the top set of teeth, made of die dots, and the bottom, made of Roman numerals. Every time you make a match, those teeth shrink into the gums and turn black and rotten, leaving your only prize at the end, in this disgusting mouth, is her golden tooth. Yippee. Being this up close and personal is unsettling, but not a deterrent for players. Rather, it sparks morbid curiosity as to both the use of the golden tooth and questions about this old woman herself, such as why is she here helping us, and is there anything different about her? Inside a cardboard box this time, you're not met with much, but what you do find is just so absurd. In one corner of the box are some maggots and flies, which you have to continue to produce to match a particular set of rules, which for me at least took way too long. And on the other side, two creatures. One like the other hybrids, but this time a crow, and the other a fish with legs. Position these the correct way based off a small drawing you found, with the fish smoking a cigar, and now a wine glass fills up. And with the wine glass you can play a tune that a pigeon makes outside the box. This whole game takes place from the perspective of a bird, so that alone is quite obscure, never mind the wild solutions and even wilder results. This level of what we know is reality and what we see on the screen is a huge part of these games and keeps us wanting to play more, which you'd hope with so many sequels. The puzzles are different and sometimes gross in a way that you have to keep looking. I played all the others after, partly due to the story behind it, but also for the novelty of different puzzles and how creative and flexible the developers were with their rules. In my opinion, this is Rusty Lake's core style of game design, and as I've hinted at already, it's these puzzles that act as the bridge between us as players and the horrors of Rusty Lake. With games like these, the creepy elements are merely a stepping stone into the greater horror that the series provides. Rather than just adding jump scares as another element in the game, these horror elements contribute to both the puzzles and the wider story. Take The Lake, for example. In this game we play as Laura, a woman suffering from mental health issues who has gone to the Rusty Lake as a sort of mental health retreat. After fishing up a few items from the lake and slowly dissecting the puzzle within the room, the next time we try fishing, we're met with grey, withering fingers. A hand comes out of the lake, and then the rest of the body. The music is no longer peaceful and tame, but shrieking and eerie as the seemingly dead body looks towards us with an unrecognizable face. We pull an apple from inside the corpse, and all of a sudden the body is gone, and the game's music returns, as if nothing happened. These are my favourite parts of the games. Firstly, because it's so upsetting. The quick shift from peaceful yet peculiar fishing to a freakish corpse with no face keeps the player on edge and reminds them what games they're playing. There is nothing peaceful about Rusty Lake, but it's also rewarding to players who have played the other games. Back to Rusty Lake Paradise, we're led by an ominous figure, and as Laura in the game's Seasons, an almost prequel to the lake, we see her tormented by one of these figures herself. This example alone unravels the story and brings about answers to the supernatural essence of these beings, but raises more about the nature of Laura and why she keeps seeing them too. A dark, unsettling figure with no face makes it that much more ominous too, and as is essential in making any horror game. As the player, you're put at such a disadvantage to the horror you're up against, it makes surviving a miracle, even when we're only really playing a puzzle game still. Speaking of miracle survivals, Birthday is probably one of the darkest in the series. We play as Dale, someone we'll meet later on his 9th birthday with his mother, father, and grandfather. In a letter to us, we are warned that today will be our darkest day, signed by Mr. Owl himself. Everything seems normal. We rearranged some decorations and got our grandfather a drink, but through the window we see someone staring in, with a human body and a rabbit's head. Still, the day continues as normal, and eventually the family begins singing happy birthday to you, until there's a ring at the doorbell. Even though we can already guess who it is, we can peer through the peephole and see Mr. Rabbit waiting at the door, looking back at us. Before we can do anything, he breaks down the door, armed with a Tommy gun, and massacres our family, leaving only us alive. The room is covered in blood, the walls filled with bullet holes, and our family dead. Yet still, the calm music plays as we are left alone. There is more to this story. Dale uses his present to turn back time and help save his family, thanks to Mr. Owl. But it's more the horror I really wanted to focus on. We saw Mr. Rabbit through the window, and as I've already shown, these abnormal hybrids play on a very important fear, the loss of humanity. So from our first sighting of Mr. Rabbit, we knew that something bad was going to happen. Also, the warning in Mr. Owl's letter only added to the panic. Meanwhile, everybody else around you acts normal, as if you're going mad. And then when Mr. Rabbit bursts through the door, at least the first time, you're powerless to stop it. There's nothing to interact with whilst he murders your family. And similar to the way these ominous figures, or as they're better known, corrupted souls, are seemingly way more powerful than us, we're left helpless. I never thought I'd feel that playing a puzzle game, and it's what sets it apart fantastically. When we do save our family, our father asks, how did we know? And we don't really have a straightforward answer to that. Mr. Owl helped us? Well then, who is Mr. Owl, and how did he know? This line of questioning could seemingly go on forever, as either player also have questions, and the only way to find out more is to keep playing and unravel the final part of this game design. The mystery. Now, I could go on forever about the lore of Rusty Lake and everything that happens in every game, but if you just take one look at the fandom timeline, yeah, it's almost as bad as FNAF. And even after playing the games, I still hadn't made sense of it all. But there's really only one mystery that really matters at the center point of this entire franchise, and that is Case 23, the death of Laura Vanderboom. Case 23 is the most story-focused installment in the series, with 4 parts detailing Detective Dale Vandermeer trying to solve a mysterious death. Yes, that means through destiny or fate or whatever, the same Dale who watched his family die during birthday is the same Dale now, investigating Laura's death, still related to Rusty Lake. But even now, weird things keep happening around him. At the crime scene, he speaks to someone on the phone who says that his place at Rusty Lake is already taken, and then he watches Laura's body disappear. This would have been strange enough from Laura's perspective, someone we know who has had mental health issues in the first place and already dealt with a corrupted soul. But Dale has no connection to this place until now. Yes, you could argue that Dale's first experience with Rusty Lake is during Birthday. However, it's heavily theorized that the version we see of Birthday is whilst Dale is undergoing some memory alteration process. Back at the station, he has Bob, Laura's ex-boyfriend and the man from the Outlier game, The White Room, detained. While trying to piece evidence together, something happens to Bob. Dale finds the police officer on duty next to him, killed, and Bob, now a corrupted soul, has escaped. He leaves behind a black cube, something we know from previous games as representing a bad memory, something Bob must have a lot of. Using that and a white cube collected from Laura, Dale is suddenly transported to Rusty Lake himself. He wakes up in a chapel nearby and escapes, which, let me tell you, took so long for me to do. I never want to see this puzzle specifically ever again. It's not even like one of the obscure ones I mentioned before. It's just moving pictures, and I suck at it. After he escapes the chapel, he meets Mr. Crow at the lake, who takes him to the same cabin where Laura stayed not too long ago. But this time it's much different. There is no peaceful music and there is no simple fishing. Something is after Dale, trying to kill him. He needs to escape, but the corrupted soul haunting him at the lake is only getting closer, The walls begin transforming into strange patterns. A deer is beheaded outside, and the music grows louder and more daunting as the corrupted soul of Mr. Deer himself is standing at the door. Dale uncovers a secret elevator just in time, barely escaping as he falls deeper into this insane mystery. Even if you played some of the other games before, the player feels like Dale does, hardly understanding what's going on around him, trying to escape and survive. However, playing the other games does pay off. You'd recognize Laura immediately as the corpse and know of the cubes and their relation to memory. You'd recognize the cabin and know that there are dangerous entities in the water. And I know I'm bringing it up again, but this breadcrumbing throughout the Rusty Lake games is exactly what happened in the early stages of FNAF. Small details, whether it be from the phone guy or pixel minigames or anything else, added to the overall story and made those games so popular in the first place. The missing children's incident and the Bite of 87 were such small moments in the games that spiraled into one of the biggest series ever, all to find out more of the story. And it's what happens here too. Playing the prequels reveals the secrets behind Mr. Owl and Mr. Crow's past. Continuing on in the story, you see just how powerful and determined Mr. Owl is at staying immortal. The sheer amount of information spread across hundreds of years and 17 games of story builds an enclosed yet detailed world for the player to explore. There hasn't been another game in the collection for over a year now, and honestly, I don't think there needs to be another. The game has told all it needs to, from prequels to side character stories. And the overarching story is rich, but finished. And that's more than I can say for FNAF, which I just found out is getting another goddamn game. God, I bring up these games so much, I might as well just make a video on them at this point. It'd be the easiest yapping session of my life. These games were great. While some puzzles felt like they dragged on a little, that could just be a skill issue on my part. If you want to know more but don't want to play all the games, I've linked a YouTube video and some Reddit posts that were actually insanely helpful in explaining the story to me. Yes, I know Reddit and helpful don't usually go hand in hand, but just trust me on this one. This series did not have as many players as I expected it to. It's awesome, and by the time I was finished playing one of the games, I expected 20 horror channels to have already played it by now. And thank God one of them was free and showed up on my Steam recommended, else I might have never played them in the first place. The Rusty Lake series explored what I thought was a dried out genre of indie horror mystery in a really refreshing way that I never would have thought of.